Hangout is on the air. This is Cloud Foundry After Dark. I believe it's April 26th. And Andrew Schaefer is on a plane to interop, so he's mostly going to be an icon and not participate too much. So we're totally allowed to say things that would annoy him, and he will not be able to respond. And Mackenzie is going to be 10 minutes late as he's got some little girls to put to bed. And big deal tonight, we've got Justin Smith joining for the first time.
Hello.
I believe Ben has offered that is completely metal, if I read the hand signals correctly. And Lawrence, I don't think you've been on before. Lawrence is our ace engineer, customer-facing engineer for Cloud Foundry out of Australia.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Been meaning to join a couple of times, but it's at my Monday during normal business hours, so it's always hard to get on when you're doing work.
So Schaefer's the normal host, so I'm just the poor man's host. So a lot of things happened this week. I had to go to the one thing I want to talk about tonight is I had to go to the VMware Cloud Native event. We talked a bit about their new embedded container OS Photon. And I thought James Baer could give us a little update on this thing called Lattice that we officially announced there, and maybe show a little X-ray off. And then plenty of roundtable to go around tonight, I'm sure. And we got CF Summit coming up with umpteen customers and users coming to town soon, so I know my calendar's booking up really fast, so really looking forward to all those talks. The shame is how many great talks there are. I started looking at the conflicts between different customers talking at the same time, so it should be interesting. I hope a lot of those are recorded. So, Bear, do you want to start us off, show us a little bit about the current state of Lattice, tell us what you've been up to? I know I officially got up and launched it, but you put a lot of the real work into making it real and X-ray. Do you want to tell people kind of where things are with that?
Yeah, sure, happy to. It was really exciting to see you guys on stage, like kick it off and share it. We've been working on it for many months now. So I guess the latest is, and I don't know if we're going to save it for the secrets or later, but we are going to open source some of the additional stuff that we showed earlier in the week at the VMware conference. So maybe I'll save a little bit of the tour of that at the end. But maybe for those of you that didn't see the VMware stuff, maybe I should share my screen and just show the X-ray off. James, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought Lattice is a great topic for us to talk on. The two things I thought would be fun to talk about tonight are Lattice and then our routing roadmap, because I think one of the things that makes the Lattice approach to container management really unique is the integrated routing out of the box. People are like, wow, this isn't just a container scheduler, it goes the whole way to the app layer. And maybe we could talk a little bit about where we're going with that, some of the design things that we've got in the pipeline there.
Yeah, sure. So let me do this. I'm getting my screen ready to share here. So first of all, Lattice, if you haven't heard of it, is basically, we've been working on Diego for about a year and 3 months now, and we have it in production underneath Cloud Foundry as part of Pivotal Web Services, and some of the you can opt in to using Diego for that. But for a while now, we've wanted to put some of the Cloud Foundry components into the hands of developers much easier than installing all of Cloud Foundry with Bosch and having that be their first user experience. So Lattice is really this way that you can get the Diego runtime plus our routing tier and our Logregator server, like all in one package. And you can see that website at lattice.cf. So let me share my screen here and give a little bit of a tour of some of this. So this website kind of walks you through what we're talking about, but we really want people to have a great 10 to 15 minute first experience with Cloud Foundry scheduling, Docker images, and get up and running really fast. So we have a Vagrant up script that lets you get started. We blogged about this earlier this week. James was on stage at VMware and showed this project running on VMware's new stripped down Linux operating system that's really good at running containers. And the basics is we have this great interface on top of it called X-ray, and you can reach that at xray.cf. Resolves to this user interface. And so let's say you're running with Vagrant up. You can use our hosted version of X-ray at xray.cf, and this one happens to be a slightly different one because of a Chrome issue I have. But
yeah,
you can see the cells that
we don't have to wait till.
Go ahead.
We're gonna open source X-ray pretty soon. It's actually already open source if you go crawl GitHub. But
Yeah.
we're gonna make more ado about it. So that's gonna be pretty fun because we didn't want to just do the hosted edition. We wanted to let developers run it locally on a laptop too.
Right. So let's go over to a shell here and spin up some of these containers. So Lattice comes with a really nice simple command line. So I can do things like list the containers that I'm running, and this one I'm running a very simple application. So this is a standard demo app, and you can see just like Cloud Foundry has environment variables, I can go here and list the environment variables that we're populating with every container gets a bunch of these, and it learns about itself. So you referenced, James, the routing information. So this application happens to use one port right now, and so it's assigned on the host a port of 61,005, and so it knows that it's if it wants to advertise that port to other places, let's say like something like Netflix OSS, stuff like Eureka, you could advertise, this is how you reach me at this endpoint address, and things would know how to reach it. But if you look, when I hit it on the URL, I actually get a really nice domain name for it. In this case, I'm using zip.io just for convenience, but I could have a fully qualified, nice domain name that's easily remembered for that as well. And as long as you have the network of space open, though, you can also directly address the container that way as well.
Now you're a Java developer, right? And you came to us as a kind of a Spring ace. As a Java developer, does this kind of interface that we've got here, the basic infrastructure here for an app, make sense to you in terms of Lattice when you've tried it out?
Yeah, I mean it's really, we designed it to be really straightforward. So I've really been excited by what the Spring team has been doing with this. So recently, Matt Stein blogged about this on the Spring blog earlier this month. This was April 6th. You can find some examples of using some of the cloud native stuff that we've done with Spring, and it made it really simple to get started with Spring Cloud and Lattice. So there's even a guide that walks you through how to set that up. But yeah, it's super straightforward, and like I said, like with these environment variables and the way you can run multiple containers, it's in a very short amount of time you can do a microservice app all on your laptop with something like Vagrant. And I think if you've never looked at it before and you just started coming up to the guide, I bet you could be productive with it in definitely under an hour. Probably half hour to an hour if you're following one of these pre-canned guides.
So James Bayer,
yeah,
is the intent to, I guess, bundle X-ray within the Lattice main kind of GitHub repo as well, so that X-ray effectively becomes the kind of management console of Lattice eventually? Or they're going to be
X-ray is a branded Pivotal and things, so we're probably going to keep it in a Pivotal repo, but it will be open source. And we're just going to, right now you can run it on this hosted edition at anywhere you have internet access. And if you can see, like, you just put in the receptor URL. But let's say you didn't want to do that because you're behind a firewall or you're flying or something like that. So we'll package this as a Docker image that you can run just like any other Docker image on the platform. So it's really straightforward. So let's go ahead and scale this up. So I'm running this Lattice app, and if I want to scale it up, I can just scale it to 4, and you can see right there in the background already the cells spun up. Now I went from 2 to 4, and going back to the app here, you can see I'm rotating through a bunch of the different containers when I refresh the page on different ports.
That took forever.
What's that?
That took forever.
Yeah, it's incredibly responsive. So at this point, I've only given this Lattice VM something like a gig of memory, but these are really lightweight processors, 128 megs of RAM for each one, and so it's a pretty pretty straightforward thing to play around with. There's some really neat things you can do with the CLI. So I can get the logs out of the container. That's the other really neat thing. So I can say Lattice app, just the logs, and we include just like Logaggregator does on regular Cloud Foundry. We package that. That's a feature people really liked with Cloud Foundry when we brought all the logs, so you don't have to go to every single individual container and SSH in and look at each container individually. This allows us to get all the logs in one place. And as you can see, every once in a while we'll do health checks. So that's another thing that Diego allows you to do is customize the health check. The one we're running here is just a very simple port check to make sure that the port's still available. But then you can see, if I go ahead and refresh the page here a couple of times and come back, you'll see that I get all of the logs from the router here as well, aggregated together. And so, since we're using all the same subsystems that we have in Cloud Foundry, you'll be able to do things like get metrics out and things like that. So it's a really nice packaging of all of Cloud Foundry in a really lightweight way. Like when I say lightweight, I mean really lightweight. The Go processes take up about 256 megs of RAM of process space on that virtual machine when we first start up. So once you start adding containers, you start adding into that. But this isn't something like Cloud Foundry. We'd recommend 8 to 16 gigs of RAM if you're going to try and put all of that on a Bosch Lite instance that cram all the containers on there. And this, like I said, is about, I think the virtual machine, I gave it about a gig of RAM is all for several small containers. You can do some other things here, like you can visualize, and it'll show you the containers visualized on the CLI if you don't have something like Lattice up and running, X-ray for the visualization there. You can kind of click around. So like one of the things, if I were to go onto the host and kill the VMs, we have health management built in, so these would pick things up right away and restart. So actually we can see if we can do that. I think it's was it kill? Kill exit? Maybe exit. Yeah, there we go. So if you go back here, it's okay. We already recovered. I was too slow. So it's a really nice packaging of what we got. So let me stop there and see if anyone else has any questions before we move on to talking about some of the routing and things that we have planned next.
James, does it run on multiple machines? Can you run it on distributed?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. So we package a bunch of Terraform scripts in the GitHub repo. So if you want to get started on Google Cloud, on DigitalOcean, or on Amazon, it's really straightforward to do. We've had a couple of people sending in some pull requests to do the same thing with OpenStack. So wherever basically Terraform runs, there's already great examples for you to either use the existing ones or extend those and add other clouds. But yeah, you can get started, and like I said, it doesn't take any longer really to use Terraform than it does to vagrant up. Maybe depending on the cloud you're using, it might take a few more minutes, but it's like you can go from 0 to cluster in under in 5 to 10 minutes basically.
Yeah, the Terraform stuff for AWS is quite nice actually. Although I did do a pull request to add in an elastic IP address for AWS, so you could restart the cluster, because before the IP addresses would get messed up if you restart the virtual machine. So added that pull request last week and got merged, which is good. But one of the things I did notice, James, when kind of experimenting with killing VMs, etc., was that how would you redistribute the containers to the new VM? For example, if I have 3 cells running in AWS, 3 EC2 instances, and I shut one down, obviously all the containers get shuffled over to the existing 2 cells. But if I was to bring that container back up, how would I then reshuffle the containers back to the new VM? Is there another command or something I can do to redistribute?
No, we don't have like a random kill command yet, but Ansi has been the architect of Diego for the whole time we've been working on it, and he and I have talked about how really if you just generally, his view on it is if you do a rebalancing, you shouldn't do anything really dramatic and fast, because you might overcorrect, and then a little blip in the system, like a network blip, might cause you to evacuate a whole bunch of containers, and then the machine comes back, and now what do you do? So you want to kind of react slowly. So his view on it is that we would slowly, he's used the word, I think, massage the cluster back into balance over time. And today you can really do that just by killing one instance at a time, and it'll go through the auction process again, and it would reschedule on the new balanced machine that way. So
I can imagine if you had,
but it's definitely something we could easily do at this point.
Yeah. I think if you had more containers than could fit into the existing cells, and then you brought back another machine, and you had the capacity to fulfill all the containers, it would reschedule those on the third VM, for example, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It constantly, just like the Health Manager component in Cloud Foundry, Diego has the same responsibility, where it looks at the desired state of the system, which the users have expressed, and it looks at the actual state of the system, and it continually tries to merge those together. And so, like, yeah, you're right. If you're over capacity for some amount of time, some amount of the workloads isn't going to get started. Diego does this kind of interesting thing right now, where we always start the long-running processes, the first instance, and then we do all the asynchronous tasks next, and then we start scaling up the apps after that to instance 2, 3, and beyond. So that way we can make sure that at least one instance of the long-running processes are running, and hopefully then the batch processes can run. Things like staging your app might be running as a batch process, so you want those things to have the ability to run. And so you add in another virtual machine, and then we'll schedule all the rest of the workload that we didn't get to schedule before because we were out of capacity.
Yeah, Bear, but for the audience who've not seen Lattice or X-ray before, it might be fun to just add another image type, so Nginx or Redis or something else, so you can actually see on X-ray how we're gonna using. We can keep them separate. You may run
just go launch a Redis.
Have 3. I don't know how much capacity you got on, but if you have already 3 instances, it's gonna complain.
Yeah, let's go do that. Now I'll do scale. I'll just drop this one down.
Yeah, scale the other one down before you do this. Yeah, I should do it.
So what we're doing here, it's a very simple command. We have a bunch of Docker images for some data services, those things like Redis. There's some text here that kind of explains that Lattice is ephemeral disk, so when your container restarts, if you're using a data service of some kind like Redis, the state will reset. So just so you know that going in. But it's a fairly straightforward command to run this. LTC create the name of the container that I want to give it. So this could be anything. I called it Redis, and then the Docker image you want to use. And the -r just means run as root. The Redis instance needs that to run. And so what's happening in the background, we're downloading all the Docker layers. Maybe this Hangout, we'll see if it'll work. I don't know how big the Docker image is for Redis. Probably should have checked on that. But if you go back to look on the UI here, you'll see that it's showing me that the Docker images should be loading, and that we're waiting for this to come down.
Yeah, Nginx would have been faster.
One thing you can actually do too that's kind of neat is this thing called debug logs, and it will actually show you these logs coming down for these various layers. So you can kind of see this happening. Let me see if we see, these are the different components of Diego color coded. So you can go read the Diego design notes. It's on the but the thing I'm really interested in is this Garden Linux. The one in purple is going to be showing me all the layers that are downloading. So maybe it's because I'm on Hangout over my slow connection at home here, but it's going to take a few moments more for the Redis instance to come down. But it's pretty straightforward. If you go back and look at the other examples, we have examples for Rabbit, MySQL, Postgres, Mongo. So if you want to quickly test a bunch of web apps and data services together, all running on the same Lattice instance, it's no problem. And it's pretty. You can just set your MySQL password there. And then one thing that happens, you probably want to see this over here. So right here it says fetch downloading. That's where it's downloading all the images right there. you can know that it's still happening. So I'll go back to the other shell here. Oh, this is something I had up earlier. So we're running etcd under the covers in Lattice, and we kind of leave these ports open for you to play with and poke around at. So if you just do the standard dump of all of the keys in etcd, you get to see the structure. This is an internal Diego data structure. It's not something we expect users to go muck with directly. This is why we have the receptor API. The receptor API is basically keeping you from having to know about the internal data structures, but you can actually see all of the various things that the various Diego components are using and keeping in the etcd to coordinate from each other. So here's an example of an actual state earlier, so we can actually see where this container is running, the different, how long it's been running, which index it is, etc. And if I go here, LTC status, and then Lattice app, you can see I'm running 2 instances of that container, and I actually get the ports for each one. So the host port is 61,008 for that, and 61,005 for the other instance. But yet, inside both containers are using port 8080 inside. So we do the network address translation, for the container automatically, so they can keep using 8080 and not know the difference from the outside perspective. Let's go see if this guy ended up finishing. See list, and now Redis is up and running. So this Redis is there. I can just go see LTC status Redis, and instead of connecting on the standard 6379 port, I can connect on 61,009 and connect to Redis.
Yeah, I think this is a big deal because there's very few things that have ever cut out the basic part of their system. Say EC2 doesn't give you its basic VM scheduler or its basic VM orchestration engine that you could have a version running in a cluster of 4 inside your data center and then go, okay, I'm used to those primitives, now I'm going to go to regular EC2. There's no micro edition of major cloud services. Google Compute Engine doesn't really give you its VM or NFS or network storage adapters. I think it's pretty interesting that we're extracting the heart of Cloud Foundry and we're only taking up this tiny footprint, and it's so dense that developers can use it right on their laptop or in a small kind of cluster of servers, and then eventually go to the full system too if they want.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, let's face it. We've heard plenty of feedback that people want to get started with the Cloud Foundry technology in a much more consumable developer desktop type of way, and this is exactly intended to address that. Yet it's also scalable. You can scale it up just like Cloud Foundry is, and it's just a really nice packaging of just enough to get started.
It's interesting. I feel like we went from worst to first. Before we're like, hey, eat this 40 gigs and 22 cores to get started, with PCF, and now we've got 256 megabytes, and it's a lot of the same primitives that you can build your app in.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm really excited. We've seen the Spring XD team playing around with using Diego to scale out the streams that they have as part of their project. I don't know if any of you have become familiar with Concourse yet. It's a CI project that we're using a lot on Cloud Foundry. I'm really excited on it. So
previously, After Dark.
Yeah. There was an episode where Alex Sirachi came on and talked about it. So he's actually already got it, so you can run Concourse on Lattice. So now you can really play around with some really cool pipelines. So let me just show you that really quickly. So let's say you wanted to do a pipeline for an application where maybe one of these things is like checking your code into GitHub, and then you want to do a test build and then promote it to one container, test it with something else, and then promote that there. You can do all these workflows now directly on your laptop, really simply. This isn't a big heavyweight CI solution that's hard to get started with. It's built for the world of containers and native container CI solution. And we're dogfooding it on Cloud Foundry. Over half of our CI is now on this, whereas previously we had been using a lot of Jenkins and GoCD from ThoughtWorks, and we're really pleased with this kind of approach. with Concourse. And so that's another thing that, whether it's playing around with the data services, playing around with Spring Cloud things, playing around the Spring XD, there's all kinds of activity going on with Lattice and Diego now that we've made it much more consumable.
Yeah, I was speaking to a client earlier this week, and this client's a little savvier on Diego. They've been looking at it closely, and as we spoke of Lattice, he asked me like, "Hey, are you holding anything back in Diego as a part of Lattice?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not. I mean, you're getting everything in Diego. You get, in the commercial and the open source version, you're going to get in Lattice. This is the whole engine working inside of your laptop." And he was just amazed by that. And if you look at some of the other container management, container scheduling, technologies coming out there, they've held back in some form or shape parts and pieces, right? For whatever reason, it might make sense for them. But I don't know how many of you have read this article. I just posted this one, but the full-blown optimization algorithm burnt inside of the Diego scheduler, right? I mean, it's not for the faint of heart, right? Full-blown optimization, integer programming. Amit has done a bunch of work on this, but it's burnt into Diego, and you get that straight out of the box with Lattice. And it's no joke. I mean, when James is pushing that image out, behind the scenes, all that was actually being executed. So it's pretty cool. Like, nothing's being held back. You get the full power of it. If you click on the links within that, you can actually see the source code for the auctioneer and all the stuff that's happening behind the scenes. So you get the full power of Diego, but all within the laptop. That's one big thing. I don't know, James, if you want to add something else to that.
Well, I mean, I think we can call a spade here. I mean, like, people talk about, Kubernetes, and it's a great project that's in the same space, but Google's holding back their container scheduler that they use inside of Google for things like Org and Omega, and they're not putting it apart as the open source Kubernetes. They want to hold that back to make the Google Cloud the best experience for where you'd run Kubernetes. And for us, with being part of Cloud Foundry Foundation, it's just part of the core engine and stuff that we don't hold back on. And we have some things that we've occasionally held back on for the user interface side, for our web console and things like Bluemix is branded differently than Pivotal Web Services, is probably branded differently than someone like HP Helion or SAP wants to do. But for the core engine, it's absolutely something that we intend to keep open source and keep the innovation going there. James, you mentioned routing, so I definitely want to come back to that point too.
Yeah, there's a guy who's a platform engineer at a company last night that discovered Lattice, and I love his tweet. He's like, "I've discovered Lattice, and I am not mad. Unmad one might, or the opposite of mad." And I think what amazed him was that before he might have glued together 5 or 6 or 8 things to get logging, routing, scheduling, containers, container images all into one system, and here it was all pre-integrated. And I think notoriously in enterprises, Cloud Foundry has been very popular because of pre-integration. But now we're starting to take that pre-integration to developers too, and it's kind of blowing their minds. And I think that one of the places we've been more aggressive than anyone else is pre-integrated routing. And so I thought it might be good to give people a little bit of a roadmap of how much we want to invest in routing, and that's going to be a pretty big team over time, and also make it extensible so folks like Apogee or anyone else in that space could plug right into our routing command lines operations.
Yeah, so let me address a couple things about that. So first, I'll just tell you some things that Lattice does already now that we haven't fully exposed in Cloud Foundry. So we expect both Diego and Lattice to be a place where we can experiment and play and develop features ahead of having them in full Cloud Foundry. So one of the ones that's already there is the ability to ask for multiple ports. That's been requested for a while on Cloud Foundry today. Like, in order to do that, you either have to run separate apps or have some kind of other process inside the container reach back out. So to set up like a reverse tunnel, some very unideal kinds of things. So with Lattice, it just makes it super simple to do that. So if you look at the create command, you can specify multiple ports with the -p or the -- ports command several times, and you get multiple ports, and so you'll get multiple things to route to your container that way. So multiple ports is already a straightforward thing you can do. The second thing that we want to do, and this is, I think we talked about this before when we were mentioning IoT and some of the other protocols that aren't HTTP. So we want to be able to add TCP routing as well. And so the way that would work is you'd pick some kind of set of IPs that would be publicly accessible to your clients, and they'd each have a port range, and you'd have to basically check out a port from one of the public IPs that was available, and you could either ask for one that,
now, Ben,
that you really care about.
On that proposal with us.
Maybe is Ben on? Maybe he could talk a little bit about that if he's on.
Yeah, I'm happy to. We had one of our partners push on this for some specific needs that they had, but they really reflected what we've heard from a bunch of other customers as well, which is they really want to be able to run essentially everything on Cloud Foundry, and not everything is HTTP. So, the plan as of right now is to sort of connect Diego and HA proxy such that in just the same way that we set up routes in GoRouter today, we'd be setting up routes in HA proxy for layer 4 stuff. I think obvious question there is, why would we have both? And the answer today is really that we have a lot of plans for integration of features into GoRouter that are difficult to put into HA proxy, and we'll see how that evolves over time. It's not an area where we want to go too nuts. People need to be able to depend on this stuff. So we're certainly optimizing for reliability rather than sort of maximum efficiency. But I would expect it's still going to be pretty darn fast.
Cool. And the other thing I should mention is I'm going to show you this thing we call the route service.
Yeah, I can't wait for this.
So if you go to the cloudfoundry.org website, you click on the wiki, and you go down to design documents, you can actually see all the stuff that has been proposed to be worked on. And one of the things that's upcoming is the route service. The route API is also recently finished work. And so before, the only way to really interface with the routing tier was to use the NATS messaging middleware. It's just a pub/sub event bus, but we recently made that also possible to work with HTTP. And so the way you now have a formal HTTP API that you can use to register, so you don't have to be NATS aware to use that. But the route service, let's go take a look at that one. And so you can read about this, but basically this is, I'll show you a picture down here that I think really visualizes it.
Yeah.
It really makes it an extension mechanism by which you can have, let's say, an application, and as someone on the platform, you can say, hey, before you route traffic for a new request to this application, I want to put a route service on the side and make sure that all traffic at least has gone through that route service to do things like metering, rate limiting, maybe some kind of transformation, maybe there's all kinds of use cases you can open up here, like James mentioned, the kind of the Apogee gateway kind of use cases. And by making this an extension mechanism, you can implement that in any language you'd want to. It just could be another app that's sitting there alongside the other ones, but the router would make sure they would route to that app first. And so we would do something like, hey, here's a token, the router would pass it along in a header. Make sure you include this token if you want this request to go on, forward it back on through, and when you do that, now the next time it comes back through, I'm going to know to allow this to the backend app because I know that the route service has seen it and has said, yeah, it's okay to keep on going. Like you could do authorizations there, you could do all kinds of things. So that's something we definitely are soliciting feedback on this. It's been out there for a couple of months now in terms of proposal, and the team's getting very close to working on it.
I think what gets me going about this, and I think there'll definitely be some performance optimizations we're going to have to think through and how it gets implemented over time, is that, like what people really want to be able to do is publish APIs. Like a lot of the technology aficionados get really caught up in what your scheduler is, how you manage the containers, but when we talk to a lot of our business customers, they're like, how do we get the fastest way to publish a net new set of microservices and APIs internally? And what system could fully enable us to do that? And I feel like this is our last mile to that, which is, hey, I'm now saying that not only is an app up and available, but I'm going to put certain permissions and guarantees on the endpoint in terms of rate limiting or maybe some authorization services, et cetera, there. And then
cool.
Maybe,
so are we done with the
done
with the demo for now? I think we covered everything I had to show.
Yeah,
would we ever bring the concept of build packs to Lattice, or always only support the pushing of Docker images?
Yeah, that's a great point. If you go look at the Lattice tracker, and there's a label on some stories called what we call the condenser. And so right now the only way to interface with Lattice, there's two ways. One way is a Docker image. That's the really straightforward, simple way you can do it on the command line with LTC. And then LTC also supports passing in a JSON payload for what we call a long-running process. And so when you construct a long-running process, that looks a lot more like what Cloud Foundry does with build packs. And when we would assemble a droplet plus the root file system of the container operating system engine, where we take the droplet and then we add the operating system underneath of it, and that makes your full container. So you can actually do that today with Lattice, but what we want to do is make the CF push-like experience where you actually don't have to think about it. We want to bring that kind of experience to Lattice. So instead of bringing the full Docker image ahead of time, where it puts the responsibility on you to build the Docker image, if you just want to give us your source code and have us do the work for you of building your container image, Lattice can take that on using the build packs. And so that's work we have planned. It's called the condenser, and basically we're going to start exposing the different ways that Diego is already building the droplets and processing the build packs in Cloud Foundry, and making that something that you can easily use with Lattice.
Yeah, and so
I guess you have to be careful of actually adding too much of the Cloud Foundry components, if you will, into the Lattice, because then it becomes heavyweight, and the whole objective is obviously run on a single machine, etc.
Yeah, we're not going to, that's one of the things that's made Cloud Foundry really big right now are the build packs. So we're not sure how we're going to accomplish that, but like to start with, we'll probably ask you to just provide the build pack reference to a web URL or GETs or something, and we'll pull it down and assume that it's an online build pack or something. So yeah, we definitely don't want to make Lattice. We want to keep this really lightweight user experience. And if you look on, like, Cloud Foundry's full enterprise has multi-tenancy and hardened security and all that kind of stuff. All the build packs already preloaded. Lattice is going to be on the other end of that spectrum, and we want to keep it lightweight. And so there will be a limit to all the, like, for example, if you want everything to work offline, you might have to bring your own web server and host the build packs locally or something like that. That might be something we show you how to do, but don't make the default user experience in Lattice.
But X-ray is actually a good model here, right? Where we're saying, hey, here's the core functionality. That's what's in Lattice, and here are components that significantly enhance that experience in one way or another. And you pick the ones that make sense for you, right? Because it may be that someone says, hey, I don't want all that X-ray stuff because I don't care about the UI, but I actually do want the build packs. So I'm going to pull down the build pack stuff and say, use that.
Right.
That model of being able to pick the components that you want and only those components is really powerful. So it's not so much a matter of ensuring that Lattice always stays small, but rather ensuring that we always make it possible to add on this functionality to the Lattice core without putting it in there. So
yeah, I think one of the things we used to have, obviously, with Cloud Foundry version 1 is the concept of the micro cloud, which is a virtual machine image that you download. But Lattice is obviously different. You use Vagrant, to instantiate the cluster. But I think you're right. If you have that all-inclusive model of downloading a VM, then it starts to get bloated and heavyweight.
Yeah, and one thing to remember is the engineers have been careful about decoupling parts of our stuff with getting parts from, in this case, the Lattice, as you can see, uses Docker images, but it doesn't use the entirety of Docker, right? And that design paradigm is going to be used as we look at the condenser and applications like that. Because even right now, the way it's being used is when Garden pulls down the image, it's not using the Docker image in all of its power. Really, you can strip it up and say I want to use a different rootfs. So that way, we're not being held hostage to some of the other technologies that will force the other container schedulers to go down a specific path. By having Garden, which gives us way more control, there's a whole bunch of things we can do which many others cannot, and those abstractions are simply awesome. So
well, I'll tell you one.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
One thing we can do. I'm really excited about it. Maybe we'll show it on the secrets, James. Is Mark Croft shared a video with me this weekend of Diego running in Windows containers alongside. So you'd be able to plug along. It's an MSI installer, so it's a little bit different of a user experience. There, you don't use a Vagrant up to get started. But so let's say I have a Lattice cluster running, and I have some Windows Server 2012 someplace that I want to add to the cluster. I just run this MSI installer, add it to the cluster, and now I could schedule Windows applications alongside my Linux ones. And that's something, because of the way we've structured Garden to be agnostic to the operating system underneath, it's a layer above, it makes it pretty straightforward for us to do that. And I'm really excited about that one. A lot of people care about running Windows apps in containers.
Yeah, and if you look at Kubernetes, even what Mesos is doing, when they go down the path of Docker, they are all in on Docker, right? You're completely wedded to that ecosystem. But if you want the decoupling and the right abstractions, if you want to inject build packs to the right layer, if you want to switch the rootfs for greater control, when you want to do patching, canary style patching, you can't do it in the other system, right? And watch. I mean, James is working on something interesting, but the write-up will clearly show that you're going to have, as an operator, you'll have greater control, but at the same time, as a dev, you'll have way more flexibility than being locked into just one single paradigm. Pretty cool. It's all in the open source. I mean,
so Justin's new here, and I know he's got to go in 15 minutes, so I'm just going to hop in while we got Justin on. I know he broke into some weekend activities to join. Justin, do you want to introduce who the heck you are, what you're up to, your background, what you bring to this show here? It's been fun having you on board.
No, thanks for inviting me here. My name is Justin Smith. Relatively new to Pivotal, been a few weeks anyway, and I plan on working on sort of platform security kind of across the board.
Uh-oh.
Systems, basically the security infrastructure there. Before joining Apsera, I was on a security team at Google, and before joining Google, I was on a security team at Microsoft and helped build Azure AD and the Access Control Service, as well as something called the DSTS. So I've been doing this PaaS security thing for a while. Thrilled to be here with all the energy and momentum around Cloud Foundry and Lattice. So couldn't be any happier, any more excited. So,
yeah. Josh, do you ever get any requests for security optimization? Josh,
sorry, what was the question? There's some crazy echo.
Have you ever getting any security requests? You've been bounced around the federal area. Do people care about that at all?
When we started Piston, the thesis at the time, which clearly was early, was that the folks who were going to run private clouds in the long term were going to be the ones who had crazy regulated markets. The folks who really just will never be able to use public cloud no matter what it looks like, and in fact might pay hundreds of millions of dollars to have major public cloud providers just clone that whole thing for them. Not naming any names there, but those folks turn out to be the ones that are really, really excited about getting more value out of their private clouds by putting a structured platform on top. So yeah, I've been doing mostly regulated industries now for the last 9 weeks, and security is the beginning and end of every conversation. So they are really, really happy about the architecture of Cloud Foundry and what it enables in terms of security, and the model of, hey, stem cell, rootfs, build pack, app code, separation of concerns, separation of responsibilities, upgrade of each of those layers independently. Really powerful concepts. Also unified logging, unified routing, these control points at the network. And so with all of the right architecture, then they get super picky about the details. And they're like, the way you define policy does not really map to the way we think about policy. In fact, our mapping is like 18 levels deep and has letters and numbers and codes that you've never heard of, and we need to be able to express that. So this has been really, we've done some cool prototypes in the last quarter. I think we talked about the OpenStack Congress integration we did. I like the fact that we have data log available as a policy declaration language that's actually external to Cloud Foundry, and you can write policies now that apply to your app instances and your placement pools and your other infrastructure totally separate. And I think that model of like bring your policy rules and have Cloud Foundry express them for you and then provide you an audit path is sort of the direction we're going. At a certain point in those conversations, I'm really happy to have someone else to point to. Be like, you've taught me out here. Like I followed you up into that point, and then we're into these details.
Justin, the security hammer, because usually, like when I'm listening on YouTube, you scratch the surface, and then Justin just comes down to 19 layers of how he's thought about it.
Totally.
Been out at the ferry building. I was just sort of along for the ride, sipping coffee while you guys went at it.
That was a layer of depth that is totally what's required.
I mean, I've been doing this game for 3 or 4 years, and when I met Justin, I was like, I thought a little bit, but down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, it should be a fun time. Yeah. Should be a fun time for sure.
Yeah.
You never really lived until die if your platform goes down, right?
Okay, we were getting some feedback. So, Justin, I know you got a hop, but I just wanted to.
Yeah, thank you guys very much for allowing me to join, and I've got to bounce here pretty soon.
Excellent. I think it's going to be great policy more enhanced than this.
Yeah, right on. All right, y'all have a good night.
I see you, man.
I think Justin needs to invest in a good pair of headphones.
He was out at a nice hotel on a weekend getaway, so that was really nice of him to hop in. Hotel Wi-Fi notoriously not optimal.
So James, question for you then. During the launch, VMware's launch last week,
yeah,
VMware obviously had you up on stage, and the various other partners, a guy from Mesosphere and Rocket, Core OS with Rocket as well. Why is VMware, I guess, partnering with multiple vendors in the same kind of space? Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think for VMware, it's sort of they're like AWS. They're like, hey, come run your workload on me, right? They are a general purpose infrastructure platform. They've solved a lot of hard storage, networking, and security issues under the covers. And to the extent that people want to run containerized workloads, they want to participate with people like Mesos to do integration of their security constructs, and they wanted to work with Core OS on their Rocket specification of portable containers in the same way that I think Lattice and Rocket should work together soon. And then, as I like to say, we have an agreement with VMware that we want to be best and first together, though. Like we'll all have a lot of partners, but we invest a lot of money pre-integrating and doing joint R&D. VMware is a platinum member of the Cloud Foundry Foundation, so I think they've got an on-ramp to get 5 dedicated engineers on Cloud Foundry-based integration in the next couple months, and probably ramping to 10 or 15 after that. And one of the things that I really am pumped about is they've come out and said, in this container era, there's going to be more of an embedded OS. So the Photon announcement was super exciting for me because I think the whole nature of the operating system changes once you're in this container era. And I really like Polvi and CoreOS, but it's sort of a very small venture to go to the likes of the top 5 banks in the world and say, we'll be your trusted secure OS. But with Photon, VMware is going to embed that into everything that they do around vCenter. Every one of VMware's appliances, that like their virtual network appliances, all of that's going to have Photon embedded in it, have to be secure. And so we're going to be able to look at VMware contributing, I think they're going to, Photon support, a Photon stem cell to Cloud Foundry. And so we're going to have a really cutting-edge, minimal container embedded OS, which really fits our model we've always talked about. And the one thing that people always wanted was RHEL, only not because they wanted satellite server to update Cloud Foundry, which is completely an anachronism. They just wanted something that was security certified. And I think VMware is going to put the hard work in to cover that off. And I had dinner last week with James Baer, along with I think one of the top 5 financial institutions in the world. And James, what did they say about Photon?
They're excited about it. They're like, hey, if it's coming along with if they're embedding it with vSphere and they're going to go through all the certifications, we're all for it. They were excited about it. To me, one of those neat things about
outside of ESX, like it only runs on ESX, or can you run it on bare metal, for example?
They showed it, I think, on stage at running on Google, didn't they, James? Like you can run it on other. It's just it's a Linux ISO, so you can create a container image or a VM image.
Setting you up to give the money shot on that quote from dinner. You're just gonna have to give it yourself, James.
I teed him up, didn't I? He didn't
I heard it.
I teed him up, but he didn't want to slam the door. Let's get Kit on. My buddy Kit he's the CTO of that group. He just texted me that he could hop on. He had to put some kids to bed, as people do Sunday night. But I'm sending him this link. See if we kill some time while he comes on.
Well, what I was going to say about Photon, what I really like about it, it's running a really modern kernel. So it's running 3.18 right now, which is really up there. But the latest Red Hat 7.1, for example, is running I think a 3.14 kernel, and doesn't have user namespaces yet. So Red Hat says they're going to get there maybe with their next minor release. But the Photon already has overlay FS inside of it. It's a really nice overlay file system. It has user namespaces, and so for us, it's like that's exactly what we want: a really lightweight, secure operating system with a modern kernel, and it's going to work great with the container workloads that we have with Cloud Foundry and Lattice and Diego.
Yeah, I think some folks have definitely been frustrated by, they treat Red Hat as their normal enterprise standard, but then, they're having to, even to get to this point with 7.0, it's been a year and a half we've been running containers, and we haven't been able to give them Red Hat because it's been too far behind. And now I think with VMware's Container OS, they're going to stay right in the cutting edge and also be security certified. That's going to be pretty exciting. And it's going to be a great vendor reduction. Just like we talked about Cloud Foundry, you use a lot less vendors. Now from just basically us and VMware, you can have one completely supported stack from a platinum member of the Cloud Foundry Foundation.
Sorry about the quote, James. Which was it? Was it Larry that?
Whoa! Don't out who said it, James.
Well, it's a first name.
Yeah.
Small world. All right, now we can't do anything. I think the point is that people are looking to build a new stack, and they don't have any preconceived notions that they need to keep 10 vendors in that new stack. And that's the thing that people love about Cloud Foundry, is that they can turn to one group and get everything from the from the operating system embedded the whole way up to that layer 7 routing and even API features now, because the focus is just delivering cloud native apps versus gluing together heterogeneous IT. So
yeah, I could actually comment on that as well. I've been doing a kind of an ROI case study with a customer in Australia, a big bank, and they're looking at native AWS deployment versus PCF on AWS.
yeah.
And at the beginning, it looked like that just doing it straight on AWS for like one single app and like 2 instances was cheaper. But as you scale up the number of apps and the number of releases and the number of instances you need to scale out your app, there's the scale with PCF is much better. You have a huge ROI the more releases you do and the more applications that you have. But what was interesting on the looking at the native AWS side, it's not just about the infrastructure costs from Amazon and all the different services they use, like the Elastic Load Balancer S3, which is fairly minimal anyway, but other things like CloudFront, etc. That all adds up, but then they have to bring their own middleware as well, right? So you got the JBoss licensing, the RHEL subscription on top. So it starts to look very unattractive when you have lots of applications on the platform. So that was quite interesting. To your point around using multiple vendors, even on top of Amazon, right? Like you could build your whole stack using the Amazon services, but a lot of the the big RHEL shops, big Red Hat shops, for example, still deploying JBoss and Red Hat on top of Amazon.
Yeah, the money quote from a couple of customers about Photon has been, if you pull that off, we'd be happy to never buy operating systems from a Linux vendor ever again. Like, I obviously we've got a lot of delivery to do and execution, but conceptually they're not only open but pretty ecstatic about it. And it just comes down to, like, the world changes and it moves on. The layer where you add value is turning into this cloud native management platform versus, hey, here's an operating system with a package management system for single nodes that I really want to be really focused on, and install apps as RPM. So that's just all changing. All right, I invited Kit. Let's see if he's going to come on. Josh, do you want to give us any update about your travels and what you've seen from folks? You've been off for a couple of weeks because you've been traveling so much.
Yeah, it's all turning into sort of a huge blur. I think I did 5 cities in 5 days. Too many weeks. I think what was the most exciting in the last 3 weeks for sure. I gave a workshop for 65 or 70 developers at a big retail firm, Fortune 500, and a day-long workshop on using CF, and they really wanted to get their entire heads around microservices, DevOps, continuous delivery, and how all of this fits together. And the part that really resonated with them, and we've talked about this before, but it's just like it feels like everybody is ready to have the conversation now, which is that Cloud Foundry is the therapist's couch for couples therapy, where the couple that's actually sitting down on the couch is the operations team and the app dev team. And this is the thing, like, everybody thought, and you've done this speech as well, everyone thought PaaS was about making app dev faster. Turns out operational agility is where so much of the value comes out. And actually, it doesn't matter if the apps can go faster. If the devs can go faster and you can't run it, it doesn't matter. There's no business value. And if you speed up operations and the developers don't build to that model, if you're like, hey, I can deploy JBoss twice as fast as I could last year, and they're like, yeah, we write Node now. It doesn't really matter. And so they're really finally ready to sit down and go, okay, well, what is it about our lack of communication that is holding our whole company back? And so the thing that blows my mind is when you really get enough of the right people in the room and you get that mix and you've got the ops team in the back and a couple of network engineers in the corner and the CISO shows up for an hour. And you say, guys, this is really about getting your business value out of the millions and hundreds of millions of dollars represented in this room and we're going to use a structured platform as a tool for you to have conversations that you have been avoiding. And so this message of like Cloud Foundry is not a programmer's tool. It's an organizational instrument of change. That's like watching people get that, and especially that's kind of the success stories that I think we're going to see at the summit. Behind every speech, and we've got a ton of customers showing up to say, hey, this is what we've been doing with CF. Listen for that thread. Listen for the thread that said, using a structured platform allowed us to change the relationship between operations and app dev in a way that moved the business forward. Because that is the subtext, and that's the subtext that's really exciting. You know, I'm spending way almost too much time with government right now, but it's super exciting. Did you see the new U.S. digital service? Obama created a new agency, right? It's actually not an agency. It's an office of the West Wing, sort of part of the GSA, part of the West Wing. And they basically said, look, we managed to change a couple of agencies by actually using software in a meaningful way. We want to do that to every single agency now. We're going to do it with a standard set of tools. And, you know, if you look at the 18F GitHub account, looks like what they're picking is Cloud Foundry. So all of a sudden, every single agency wants to talk to me, and they're like, look, we need to get our heads around this. This looks like this is the direction we're going. How do we get started? Like you know, government is usually slow.
Are you saying we might be at the right place at the right time with this cloud-native platform that delivers something so structured government could enjoy it?
I'm saying we landed our first N, where N is a very large number of like straight into prod projects in government. I mean, you were a doubter, right? We fought about this when I came on last fall. I was like, dude, I'm telling you, government will be 50% of our entire business in less than 18 months.
I'm a West Coast.
I'm holding myself to that number. Like
West Coast technology guy, I'm a little bit cautious about government bureaucracy, so I figured they'd be I figured they'd be in the second half of a big adopter. So I was trying to get us a big wave of adoption first, which I think is a fair hedge.
Yep, fair enough. They like to follow.
Yeah.
Usually they like to follow, and they certainly like to follow some of the folks who went first with us. But it's coming in a huge way. It's weird that it's actually already here. I show up for a lot of these conversations. Like, yeah, we never really told you that this is who we were when we bought it, but we've kind of been using it already. And
no, it's popping up. One of the ex-Netflix engineers left Netflix to go work on a major political campaign for a woman running for president. I have
no idea who that would be.
I won't specify which woman likely to be a major candidate for president that might be. But they were using Lattice. They're starting to, as of last week, just telling me, as their development environment for that whole set of apps they're writing for that campaign.
Awesome.
So watch Mr. Non-Politics me. Suddenly Cloud Foundry's all over the government and in campaigns. I'm going to have to start tuning into CNN for the first time in my life.
Yeah. I'll send you a video. You might actually have to wear a button down.
Oh, no.
Not a suit. Not a suit. Apparently suits are not required anymore. But a button down under the hoodie would go a long way.
Yeah, I was actually reading the playbook for the U.S. Digital Services last Thursday, Friday. I was just amazed at the checklist that they created. If you read through the checklist, it reads like a checklist that a mature Foundry would look at. DevOps, CI/CD, the use of OpenStack at almost every layer of the full stack environment they're looking at. And with full signatures of the key people, they're kind of mandating that within the digital services. So it's impressive to see that level of sophisticated thinking coming out of Washington, which we are not really used to, unfortunately.
I mean, this is the thing. The administrator of U.S. Digital Services is straight out of Silicon Valley, right? He was part of the parachute team to fix healthcare.gov, and they just talked him into staying.
Yeah.
So he doesn't wear a suit. Like, you should watch the video of his first day at the White House, which is awesome and hilarious because he's in the middle of his briefing. Anyway, you should see it. There are really, really exciting things happening in DC right now, which is why I'm on my way there again in another 36 hours.
I pasted the link to the playbook, at least not all of it, but at least one of the plays, so guys can read it. It's definitely a fascinating read. It's not one of the documents that comes out, which are like 9,000 pages long and crappy to read. This is like short, sweet, gets to the point, and hits all the key points that an advanced CIO or a company's CTO should be looking at. That's one thing. And the other thing that we should be watching for the convergence is, and I'm really close to when I see transformative plays with a lot of our clients, is the convergence of data science with DevOps and some of these advanced apps. The fact that the government again picked DJ, right, the LinkedIn data scientists to run a lot of the data science stuff. I think that convergence will also start to happen as they start to build this digital platform out. Data.gov has got boatloads of data. They're going to blend all that and bring it together. It should be pretty cool. Very cool.
Hey, look who I found.
Kit!
Kit, you have cameras in VMware? Oh, there he is.
We got the camera, but we got no audio. He'll get jacked up in a minute.
Yeah. Can you hear us, Kit?
You're on mute. It automatically mutes you when you start up. You got to unmute yourself.
Cool. Give him a second. No, it was one of those things, like we got big in financial services, we got big in telco, then we started getting big in manufacturing. Now we're starting to get big in retail, and then some tech companies are coming to us to build their SaaS apps on, and I'm like, okay, this is getting really big. And then Josh and the folks from government came in with this list of all the government users, and major government people started writing checks, and so it's almost a success crisis going on right now. That's my secret for the night right now. Is that
you should tell him the full secret is we actually, along with the summit, we're doing a bunch of internal arm wrestling because every one of these market segments, we've got like Ben's at the table with like, hey, I got like all of the largest IoT plays in the world are CF backed, and here's our laundry list of what we need. Yeah. I got all of the East Coast coming in for public sector and saying we love what it does. Here's where we want to go. And we've financial services and retail, and everyone's got their. We just gotta pull that together.
All the telcos are talking to us. So yeah, 2 days after Summit, we're having basically a giant wrestling match for our extended staff team to fight over priorities, which is rightfully what happens when you get a success crisis like this. So, hey Kit, can you hear us? He is a CTO at VMware. Just for the record. Oh man, bummer. You know what you should do, Kit? You should restart Chrome. Sometimes Chrome.
It's usually actually kill Skype first and then restart Chrome.
Yeah.
Because you can't. Skype grabs the mic and won't let go.
Yeah, it's happened to me many times. It's just there's nothing you can do till you do that. Just come back in 5. We'll be here.
I thought it was really cool. I saw Colin Humphreys from Cloud Credo just a few hours ago got Cloud Rocker, the thing that makes it easy to go from build pack to Docker image. He got that working with Lattice and published instructions on that. So I'm going to be talking with him about that at Summit, and I'm excited. He's been playing a lot with it the last couple of days, and he got it working. So I put the link in the chat, but if you go look at the Cloud Credo GitHub site and for Cloud Rocker.
Did you guys talk about what Aaron Krantz did at ApacheCon?
Nope.
Did you hear about? So Justin does the heavyweight version of that because he can. So he took a full OpenStack install, including a Ceph cluster of the Bloomberg version of OpenStack, set it up on his laptop, and then he got an entire install of Cloud Foundry on top of OpenStack on his laptop. And then he sent me the notes of like, these things were hard to do when I did this. I was like, dude, nobody has ever done that. Like, yeah, it's going to be hard. Holy crap. It's like I filled up the Ceph cluster and Bosch reacted badly. Okay. Legit point. Also, we haven't had that problem before because usually we install it on top of, Amazon, and filling up S3 is essentially impossible. So there are some performance issues with having the full set of build packs on your laptop because you have to download the whole build pack in order to run the detect script. And apparently when you're simulating an entire Ceph cluster on a single SSD, this is like it took anyway. Bosch is amazing and runtime is amazing because all of these jobs got piled up of like he had changed IP addresses inside a Bosch deploy a couple of times, so the whole jobs table was full. And so at the end of it, he basically just left his laptop alone for like 3 hours, and everything fixed itself. It's like all of the jobs actually ran, and all of these piled up errands actually executed, and the system resolved states. I was like, now if it had a little bit more horsepower, that would have happened faster. But the fact that it happened at all was like system state convergence works, bitches.
Thin AI on a laptop. One of these things is not like the other.
Right.
Hey, Kit.
Blew my mind.
Can you hear us? Can you talk? He's literally like the guy that helped do vMotion at VMware, like one of the most technically challenging things that's ever been done. And
I think your headset is the problem.
Maybe he could have lost voice.
Hit settings and pick what you actually want to use.
How many CTOs do you need to use? Hang out.
He's like one of the most technically badass guys I've ever met. Just comic.
You'd think that it could figure out which one actually has sound coming to it and then just switch to it, but...
Switch browsers then. Try Safari.
Well, I'm going to have to drop off anyway.
You download and install of Opera.
Best of luck with tech support.
See you, Ben.
See you, Ben.
Hey, Ben.
Bye, Ben.
I'm going to keep hanging out till Kit gets through. I don't care how long it takes. I want to talk about Photon.
Hey, James, I don't know. Can you dial in like we usually do with Hangouts if someone can't? You've had this issue before. Can you call him on your cell phone?
Call Kit's mobile from the top. You can't add people on this.
Yeah, that's what I can't see that. Maybe James has got more power because he.
James, do you have a plus thing on the top of your bar?
I cannot invite phone numbers to Hangout on air.
Oh.
This is turned to Google Hangout after dark. Tech support.
That's all right. We gave it a good run. Kit, just give us hand signals. Are you excited about Photon? Yes. Yes, we did. Does the world need an embedded container OS?
I was really looking forward to going toe-to-toe with Kit on this one, actually, because, I built a micro OS in my day, and I still think Pistons is pretty good. I think Photon's awesome because it's acceptable, because it comes from a giant company. No offense to VMware. But I would love to, arm wrestle down the in-memory versus on-disk aspects here, and, the breadth of networking options, and some of the sticky parts are where this gets interesting. Network connectivity and storage connectivity especially.
Yeah, it might be kind of cool to invite some of the Photon engineering team on to debate Josh.
I think they're going to be making huge contributions here, so I'm really excited, and I hope Kit would be the first guy to join and start talking about what we're going to do with Photon. So
totally.
Unfortunately, we can't get the audio to work this week, but maybe next time.
James, what are you most excited about for the summit coming up?
Well, I mean, there's just a lot happening in the ecosystem right now. I'll give you an example. Like, we're talking to GitHub about making GitHub Enterprise. Maybe this will be a secret. One of our biggest customers, Allstate, is there speaking at Summit. And concurrent with that, Allstate's a big champion of running everything on Bosch or Cloud Foundry in a runtime. And so they're pushing on GitHub, who I believe is going to come to Summit, to just make sure that GitHub Enterprise actually becomes Bosch deployable. Now, that's not committed to or anything, but kind of the coming together of all these forces and building this very big ecosystem that's happening. We get all these customers, we get some other partners that come in, and how those things start to come together. I think getting all those people into one room to collaborate under one roof at Summit is kind of what gets me pretty excited. Does that make sense, Josh?
Totally. I mean, it's funny timing because I'm actually meeting with one of the GitHub Enterprise folks in DC this week as well. Same kind of thing, right? Just joint engagements, pulling us into those deals, and finally, and actually, we've had a number of partners. It's funny. I'm not really supposed to be in a BD function. I'm like, I like customers. I talk to customers, but because the customers are like, hey, we've got this other tech, and we want you guys to work together. We're constantly getting pushed into these.
Well, we're a platform, right? So yeah, there's always going to be a BD.
We're going to be everyone's partner.
Hey, Kit, you're twice. Can you talk now again?
No.
Lame. Yeah, I'm gonna eject him, make him come back. Boom. Ejected. Booted. Yeah, so I think that's going to be great to get all those people in one room and having those conversations, Josh. I think we're looking at over 1,000 people, for it down in Santa Clara, which for an enterprise platform like ours is pretty exciting numbers.
Yeah, for sure, especially timing-wise. I mean, this is what, the third summit ever?
Yeah, this is really the second CF summit, and then we did one little smaller show 6 months before the first one called Platform.
I remember that one, yeah.
You still had 500 people to that one, though. It wasn't exactly small.
Yeah, we had 600 at that one.
Yeah.
Expected.
Small.
Yeah.
That one blew my mind. I was worried that there'd be like, I remember saying to Stephanie, we were driving down with Schaefer, hey, that was also a moment when Pivotal really changed because Schaefer got involved with this whole war, which Schaefer, helped, I think, lead the Josh, led the Ben, led the Cote. Josh recruited Justin, and I think that was a seminal thing for Schaefer to sign on. But I remember driving down to the first one. We'd never held a conference for this, and we held it on a Sunday because the dates were really rough. We wanted to co-locate it with spring, and I said to Stephanie, I was like, well, I hope there's 100 people when I give this keynote, like 100, 150. I stood up on stage, and this one's still, it's just a quick 6-minute talk. 680 people jammed into the room. The capacity was 650. Is the room we rented. So that was when we really knew we had something going on, I think.
One of the things I liked about that first conference, James, was the unconference, where you had everyone kind of broke off into the corners and did kind of lightning talks. Are you planning on doing that type of thing again?
That was all Schaefer's sort of, very grassroots, solid thinking. So I don't think we have a specific unconference. I know we've got some other stuff going on. We're now sort of like a classic 3-track. The other thing that was fun about Platform, the first one, it was single track, and the room was small enough. It felt like a Cloud Foundry congregation, if I can say that, be so bold. It was like everyone squeezed in tight, everyone kind of excited. It was the start of a revolution. You knew something special was going to come out of that. So that was a lot of hats off to Schaefer in terms of planning and executing that. So we haven't looked back since then. It's almost 3-tracked, which is pretty crazy to me.
I'm excited about Microsoft speaking at the conference around running Cloud Foundry on Azure. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, Microsoft's going to announce a little bit about us at their Build conference coming up next week, the end of this week. And then they got 2 presentations at Cloud Foundry Summit on Azure. And I know, Arnie, we've worked with a bunch of customers already interested in that. So that's pretty cool. If you think we got Microsoft coming to the table to battle Amazon to be the best big public cloud to run Cloud Foundry on, I welcome that. And customers all love the idea that there'd be 2 mega-funded IaaS services fighting for their workload. Like, they get all of the platform benefits of Cloud Foundry, and they get to have the cloud vendors, kind of battle for the right to run the workload. It's pretty exciting.
Well, I've got customers coming all the way from Australia, specifically to see those sessions around integration with the Microsoft stack.
So hey, check out, this is Mark's video right here for a little secret that he had put together. This is the updated Diego installer on Windows.
It's high production on these.
Yeah, he does a really nice job. He probably does too nice of a job. I don't know how much time he puts into this stuff, but
hey, James, can you share the link to that as well, so that folks can watch it?
It's not public yet. So he's gonna post a blog either today or tomorrow. So
Nice.
Just follow us on Twitter. You'll see us hyping this up a little bit. Just a short 1-minute showing of Diego working on Windows. And when it's all done here, I'll pause it in a moment. You can actually see like the C:/ right there. See that right there? C Windows System 32. So, it's all going with the best of Windows containers that you can get, which uses this thing called job objects in Windows Server 2012. And Microsoft's doing more. They're probably going to be saying more about that, I would guess, at Build. We'll have to see this week, but it's really cool that we can bring Cloud Foundry container technology to Windows today without having to wait for the other what they're doing in Windows Server 2016 or whatever they're going to call the future versions of Windows. And then while I have the screen up, here's the other part of my secret, which is just today we flipped the bid on this X-ray repo, and it's now public. It's an Apache 2 licensed project that is under the Pivotal CF experimental organization on GitHub. So check that out. It's a Node.js application using React.js, and that's what we were showing earlier with that kind of fancy UI for Lattice. Go check it out.
Yeah, Lattice is interesting. There's no server-side component. Fun JavaScript.
Yeah, I mean, it really blew my mind how you could have the hosted version of X-ray working with my Vagrant VM. So I'm hitting an app that's hosted on Amazon that's able to talk to my Vagrant VM just because it's using, the 192 address. It's actually it's initiating the request from your browser. Yep. Therefore, it's never coming from the server side. It's kind of neat how it works out.
Yeah, that was a head scratcher for a little bit. I'm like, how the hell is it doing that? And once I'm like, holy shit, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think what's so cool about this, my favorite part of After Dark is when it's on so long that no one's listening anymore and you just talk. So we're now having the fun part of After Dark, as far as I can tell, the say whatever you like bit, is we're going to try to put together a Q3 roadshow with this whole Spring All-Star team using Lattice and the Spring Cloud stuff that we're going to beta in April and GA in June, I hope, and really help move the needle for people, which is not just container technology or kind of what 5% of the market cares about, but what 95% of the market cares about is how do you write cloud-native applications. And so I think that's what's going to be really cool about Lattice is enabling the Spring team to go out and teach people to write distributed microservices applications and Lattice on your laptop with Spring Cloud potentially all in one show. Go blanket the earth with events around that. I think that could be fun. Now it's all on-ramp to CF. Once you have cloud-native applications, the CF payoff is pretty quick.
Yeah, and you don't even have to wait that long. I mean, if guys have been following the conversation, and when James Bayer ran that added image, the Redis image, if you scroll to the same page all the way towards the bottom, Stein and Dean, essentially from the Spring Cloud, they've added 3 images. One to run the Spring Cloud config server, the Eureka, and then using those 2 Docker images, you can run Spring Cloud clients. And now you can run a full-blown Netflix OSS style stuff, kind of pre-wired, but all on Lattice, right? A couple of commands, just you can copy-paste those, and boom, you have a full-blown Spring Cloud client kind of configured to run against the standard config server and the Eureka server. And all of that works right out of the box on that same Lattice instance. Just keep in mind when you run these things, you may or just scale down your instances. You should have no trouble running Spring Cloud stuff. It's pretty cool. If you like Spring Cloud and you like Lattice till now, that'll also blow your mind.
Yeah, I think that's the end game for us is just taking it up to the app layer. And keep focusing on cloud-native apps, and that's the calling of really our platform. So a lot of execution underneath that, but that's the fun bit. Well, Kit says his microphone is officially refusing to work tonight, so I'll make sure he tries to come on next week and gives us a deep talk on Photon, which I'm really excited about, because it brings a big contributor to the Cloud Foundry Foundation. We previously didn't have a big OS, certified and enterprise contributor in the foundation. Red Hat obviously declined to join for their own product strategy reasons, but I think even better to have a non-legacy vendor than come to the foundation to help us in VMware. So it's pretty exciting. Hopefully we get them on next week. All right, any parting wisdom from Asia Pac, Lawrence? You didn't come on much, so fit it.
Yeah, a couple of points. So I've actually noticed recently that companies are trying to roll their own PaaS effectively with things like Kubernetes and Docker, as you've probably seen as well. So I'm wondering whether you try and position Lattice first as a kind of a stepping or a stage approach before they go full-blown pivotal cloud Foundry, or would you kind of cut them off the knees and say it's either your homegrown PaaS where you have to kind of stitch everything together with logging and routing, etc., and go straight for Cloud Foundry, or kind of gently ease them into it with a Lattice approach?
I mean, I think anytime it's focused on implementing this cloud-native application pattern, it's all goodness for the industry, right? I think it's less around stopping other ways of running cloud-native apps and more around enabling everyone to do that quickly out of the box. I do think that we've made it lighter weight to get started with us. And one of the coolest things about Lattice is if you want to build your own platform and you don't use the engine at the heart of the most successful platform, which is Cloud Foundry, now that it's lightweight and easy to grab by itself, I think it's crazy. So I definitely think that's the case. But there's always going to be a segment of the market that kind of wants to build things themselves and to have infinite tunability in the same way that we build our own scheduler for the same reasons. So I'm less concerned about people who are not using Cloud Foundry, more concerned about making sure that a lot of people are writing cloud-native applications, that that's the trend of the industry. I think we'll always have a big place in the market amongst those kind of folks because of our level of integration, right? You don't have to manage the OS anymore. You don't have to manage multi-tenancy. All the things we're doing with routing, I think there's always going to be lots of room for us to run those apps.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kubernetes is still a very, very, very small part. And even there, the point I was trying to make, the optimization stuff is not available, right? So and they have a few nice abstractions, but beyond that, for the image part, they're held hostage to the Docker ecosystem, and they really solve one facet of what an enterprise needs. So there's and you brought up all this point. You brought up a couple of the other points, but for a true platform, right? You need a whole bunch of other functions that need to be added for it to be usable within the enterprise. You can have a team of 12, maybe 6 if you're lucky, to build all of that. But why? I mean, why do the yak shaving? Even if you're starting with a half smart yak, you're still doing a lot of yak shaving. So, yeah.
Cool. Hey, fun Sunday night, James. Bear, any parting shots?
No, it was a good time. I'm glad we got to show off Lattice. I'm excited for more people to use it, and I hadn't heard that story about the 18F stuff, and I'm excited just to get it in people's hands and have people give us feedback from trying it, try and do real stuff with us, and I want to hear all about it.
Excellent, Lawrence. I look forward to seeing you at Summit, as I did last year.
Yep.
That was the last time I saw you, I believe. So I look forward to it.
Likewise.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.